Once we have worked with pivot tables by rows and by columns, it is very useful to represent our data properly. So let's create our pivot table again. Always in a new worksheet because it's more practical. Let's consider the revenue, the sum of the revenue as values. The name is used for the columns and the country is used for the rows. As you can see, this is the grand total and this is the sum of the subtotals. There are some particular ways to represent this data. We just have to go to the values on the arrow and value field settings. We can select the measure we want to summarize our value by, but we can go here to the tab show values as. For example, we can use several representations. For example, the percentage of grand total. Each one of these values is a percentage of the grand total, so the total sum is 100%. So Mary in Canada has performed the 16.35% of the total revenue. John in Germany has performed the 32.32% of the grand total. This is very useful when you want a percentage of the total. And this is related to percentage of grand total. But we can use, for example, the percentage of the column total. So the sum of the columns is 100%. So for example, John has performed 61.38% of his revenue in Germany alone. Mary has performed 30.17% of her revenue in UK. And you have the percentage of the total column. This is very useful in order to give this particular insight. Again, we can change this value for the percentage of the rows. Row total. So if we focus on Italy, 49.89% of the revenue came from John and 50.11% came from Mary. The grand total of the row is always 100%. So you can see the percentages from the columns point of view and the rows point of view. And it is very useful in order to give different insights we can extract from our dataset. We can use several different settings here, show values as parent total, difference from, and so on. My suggestion is not to be confused by all these things here. According to my experience, the most important calculations are the percentage of grand total, of the column total, and of row total. So you may want to use this particular kind of measurements and representations of our variable. So this is how you can represent the sum or other metrics according to the total of rows, of columns, or the total of our dataset.